Hey everybody, our full REGO system has come in and we're excited to introduce you to all the different components. So we'll start with our battery. This is a 12 volt, 400 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. It is a beast. Everything comes into the battery from our combiner box. This takes all the different ways that we can collect energy and funnels it into our battery. There's 3 different ways that we can charge.
So the first way that we can charge is shore power. So that's whenever you're at a campsite or if you're plugged into someone's home. So you've got your shore power coming into our 3000 watt pure sine wave inverter charger. And that is going to go all the way into our combiner box. The second way that we can charge is from our truck. So that's DC to DC power. So we have wired up the truck and it comes into a 60 amp DC to DC battery charger, and then these wires come all the way back into our combiner box.
So our third way is of course through our solar. Now we've got panels on the roof, we've got a portable panel that we can put out in the sun if we need to, and that all comes through our charge controller, which is an MPPT 60 amp charge controller. That goes right back into our, and you guessed it, combiner box. Kind of a good name.
Not only does it combine all of the input that we're sending in here, it also sends output. So these are our DC output that's going to provide the DC load for our trailer. And then over here, we have output for DC that will come into our inverter charger. It'll be changed into AC. So what that means is when we are off grid, we can run everything. Our laptops, our fridge, our microwave, AC and DC, all of it's going to run off grid.
Here's a wiring diagram of the REGO system, which will be our guide for the entire installation. We aren't going to install these 6 components in numerical order because of size, space, and configuration needs, but we'll get to all of them for sure. Each component installation chapter is time-stamped in the video description below, so you can jump around wherever you need to.
Oh!
Surprise! What we've done in here is took a space that was used for an outdoor fridge, took that fridge out of here, and then we have cut a shelf away so that we've got more vertical space. But one of my favorite things about this cabinet where we're going to have all of our components is that it passes all the way through to the inside of the camper, so we can access our components from either outside or inside based on what we need to get to, or frankly how cold it is.
We have built these little cardboard boxes to scale so that they represent each of the 5 components that we're going to need to put in our cabinet. Now the reason we've built them in cardboard is because some of these are really heavy. The battery, the inverter charger, those are super heavy. The battery is 112 pounds. So you can imagine moving them around in the cabinet is not ideal. So we've got all 5 components here. We can mess around and we can make sure that they fit. We are building in 4 dimensions. What's the 4th dimension, kids? It's time. Because we're putting stuff all the way up here and we're not gonna be able to get to it once the battery's in here. So as we build this, we're thinking about what needs to happen first.
If you're doing a build from scratch and not integrating the REGO system into an existing RV electrical system, feel free to skip over this explanation. Every trailer manufacturer is different, so you'll need to do some exploration with your current electrical system. But here's what's going on with this 2021 Forest River Wolf Pup. The DC system is wired with the old battery on the trailer tongue. The positive and negative battery wires connect to a positive bus bar and common ground underneath the trailer at the forward floor beam. The positive DC cable runs halfway back along the driver's side trailer frame until it meets up with the DC wire, which is connected to the control panel at the rear of the trailer. Both wires then cross to the passenger side along the underbelly of the trailer, where they then come up into the kitchen cabinet and connect to a battery disconnect switch. Now, since the new battery has an easy to reach on and off button, we no longer need this disconnect switch for safety reasons. This is another reason why we chose this location for our components, because of the easy access to the existing DC power cables on the trailer, which we will then connect to the DC terminals on the system combiner box once it's installed and in place. This saved us some time, hassle, and the expense of extra wire. To disconnect the old battery, we simply removed the battery cables from the terminals, then disconnected the old cables from the positive bus bar and common ground, being certain to leave all the other wires and grounds installed as we found them. Since this wire was in good condition, we're going to make use of this old negative battery cable to ground the new battery through the system combiner box in its new location.
So we started with the inverter charger on the floor, but as we looked at the specs, we realized we needed a lot more space to ventilate this guy. So we built these supports to give ourselves enough space from the wall, on top, and then from the floor. And the reason that we did that is that there's a cooling fan in here. This thing gives off a lot of heat, so the cooling fan needs space to breathe.
With the DC battery wires, as well as some of the other trailer wires coming into the existing hole, we're going to need some more room for cables in and out of the solar cabinet. So it's hole drilling time. Then you'll need to ground the inverter to a common ground on the trailer chassis. Here we've taken advantage of an existing metal bolt through the frame. You'll notice that we also use the same place to ground the DC negative terminal, which will connect to the system combiner box terminals later on.
The AC terminals have individual wire terminals for ground, live, and neutral, where you will insert the bare, black, and white wires of the AC input wire, respectively. And this is the same for the output wire. Using a utility knife, expose the wires from the insulation and strip the end of the wires to make a good connection into the terminals. Insert the wire through the cable entry housing and secure each wire into its proper set of terminals. Terminal levers are quite stiff and do require a bit of force to open and close. And secure each wire into its proper terminals. Once everything is securely connected, reinstall the access panels and move on. We'll be connecting the other end of these AC wires later in the video.
Our DC to DC charger came with 10 feet of wire. We've already run that and we need to extend it. So we're going to connect those 10 feet to these wires and we're going to run that input wire all the way to the front of our trailer to the tongue. And we're going to add an Anderson connector so it plugs right into our truck and we can charge from the truck while we're driving.
The solar charge controller input adapter has Anderson connectors on one end and MC4 connectors on the other. So we'll have to put some MC4 connectors on the cables coming from the solar panels on the roof. We have not yet plugged those panels in, so these cables are not hot. So that you don't damage your charge controller, it is very important to make sure that your charge controller is connected to the combiner box or battery prior to plugging in the solar panels.
We're going to do a quick side-by-side comparison with our old battery versus the new battery. This is a 100 amp hour lead acid battery, and it has a 50% depth of discharge. So that means that we have 50 workable amp hours on this lead acid battery. In comparison, we have our lithium iron phosphate battery with 400 amp hours, can have an 80% depth of discharge. So what that means with this guy is that we have 320 usable amp hours. 320 versus 50. It's a big difference. The other thing that we can talk about side by side is the weight. This lead acid battery weighed 46.2 pounds. This battery weighs 112. 2.5 times more weight gives us 6.5 times more amp hours.
One, two, three.
The system combiner box comes equipped with the appropriate fuses for the 3 inputs. So all we need to do is install them. Now while the process is simple, definitely give the included quick guide a read for specific instructions, because damaging one of these fuses could be costly.
Chunk. This will monitor all of our components in our system wirelessly through Bluetooth. Renogy One comes as part of the REGO system if you order the kit. Now this can go anywhere in your RV or your trailer that has 12 volts, so it doesn't have to hardwire into the battery.
And by removing this panel, we found a mountain of spaghetti. Most importantly, we found the DC input and output wires here on the One control that we could tie in the Renogy One monitor.
We want to put it right here next to our front door and next to our existing control panel for our slide and our awning. So we're going to cut a little hole out here, and then this will flush mount up against the cabinet, and the wire will come in through the cabinet and plug into the back of it. So
if you want to learn how to set up and program your Renogy One monitor, check out our recent video because we walk you through it step by step.
We have the power to the trailer completely undone. We unhooked our battery, so there's no power going to the trailer. What we're about to do is to get into here, into our control panel, and hook up our inverter charger to our trailer's electrical system. We have our AC side, which is this half, and we have our DC side, which is this half. Now this half might look familiar. It might look like a breaker box that you have in your house. And this side, if you have worked on cars or anything like that, it looks like a fuse panel. This orange cord here, this is our shore power that brings power into this control panel. We're going to be cutting this orange wire, and we're going to be including our inverter charger. We're going to be using electrical junction boxes to do that. I see it.
there we go. Yay!
There are a number of different ways to wire this, but let's walk you through what we did. We cut the shore power wire, then using a junction box, we connected it to the inverter charger input wire that we pulled along the trailer underbelly. Follow the black taped wire. This wire is connected to the inverter charger input, which is the black input terminal on the inverter charger. The output wire leads from the white output terminal on the inverter charger back along the underbelly of the trailer. Follow the white taped wire, which connects to the control panel through another junction box and completes the loop from the shore power to the inverter charger and back to the control panel. By doing it this way, we didn't have to rewire the master breaker.
So the inverter comes with something called an automatic transfer switch. And what that means is that it automatically knows when we're plugged into shore power. So when we're plugged into shore power, it takes that energy and it powers the trailer. But it also knows if we're off grid. And if we're off grid, it pulls from the battery. And there's nothing we need to do to make that happen. It just knows. When you're plugged into shore power, a converter takes that AC power and it changes it to DC power and it charges your battery. Well, we have the lovely inverter charger, which is doing that job. So we no longer need this converter. So our next step is to disconnect this because it's obsolete.
This last step is optional, but you might want to consider having a portable solar suitcase option available for low solar gain days or when you want to park the rig in the shade but still be able to charge. We can't say enough about how helpful our solar suitcase has been. We're using some extra wire left over from the solar panel installation and creating a short extension cord directly from the DC terminals through the trailer to a pair of MC4 connectors so that they can plug in the solar suitcase without having to open the solar component cabinet. We're not tying this panel into the solar charge controller along with the other panels, as this 200-watt solar suitcase has its own built-in charge controller, so this remains a safe charging option.
And 4. Woo! Yeah! Woohoo!
And that's a wrap on this REGO installation. Be sure to check out the other episodes in the series, including the next one, episode 5, where we finally turn everything on and test out our big high wattage appliances.
That's the fun part. And this project has been so much fun, though I'm not entirely sure that November in Bend, Oregon was the right time for an outdoor
It did
project.
not get above freezing in weeks.
But Erin and Jeremiah have been great students and teachers. They started out knowing very, very little about electrical, and they installed the entire solar system themselves with just a tiny bit of coaching from us.
Be sure to check out our other episodes, reach out to us in the comments section below, and please hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. See you on the road.
We'll see you on the road.
When you got it like that.